welcome to In the News for August. Watch out, it's already August 1st, 2025. I am Brett Birdie from appsandlaw.com.
And I am Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. August. Yeah, you're blowing me away. That's crazy.
August,
wow.
Already, the very first day of August today. It's a nice Friday, though. Before we get started, we want to say thank you to a returning sponsor, somebody that we have, both Jeff and I are very familiar with and we like a lot, Lit Software, litsoftware.com. Let me go ahead and just open up the webpage real quick. We'll talk about them a little bit more here in a little bit. Litsoftware.com has been around since the iPad pretty much has been around, because they originally started making apps for the iPad, and they still do. And the only reason I'm kind of hinging on that is because some of these apps now run on Mac OS as well, which is really cool. We'll talk about their apps here coming up in a little bit. But in the meantime, you might want to check your updates on your iPhone and your iPad, because the brand new update is here. All right, but not 26 yet. This is iOS 18.6, which may possibly be the last point update, maybe, Jeff, before the new iOS comes out. We don't know, but I would have a safe guess on that.
Could be. It's not going to be the last forever, because Apple still goes back and occasionally updates. Like, I think they had an iOS 17 update not that long ago. It's mostly for security and stuff like that. At this late in the cycle, you're not going to really see new features. And this update is fixing some bugs in the Photos app, which makes sense. But it does have security updates, which are always important. And so even though, we're all looking forward to the future and everything else, for example, on my Vision Pro, that's the only thing I'm running beta software on. I have the beta version of Vision OS 26. And I noticed that, Apple has updated, the prior version Vision OS, which I think was 2, 3, a big number difference there. But I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't matter to me anymore, because I've already moved on to the beta.
Yeah,
but for all my other devices, my iPhone, my iPad, my Apple Watch, I guess those are the 3. I haven't yet updated my TV, my Apple TV, tvOS. But so there are new updates out there, and so just something to look for, and makes sense to do. These are security updates, so I wouldn't ignore them. I would install them.
Right, and they go really fast. I did my phone and my iPad this morning. I think my watch said it didn't do the update overnight, because sometimes it has to be like charging, or it has to have enough charge on it so that it goes through, but it just tells you. And then I just basically said, well, go ahead and update it tonight. Hopefully, when you do have enough charge, go ahead and do that. You can always force those installs to go, but I like the Apple Watch, how it does that on well. And I was gonna say, I have no qualms about telling people to upgrade to 18.6, because at this point, with a 0.6 upgrade, it's pretty mature. And then I'm thinking,
oh goodness, yes,
we're not even a year into this, though, right? It's amazing that we're saying that it's mature, and it's just amazing. But by the time that Apple starts rolling out like a 0.5 or 0.6, yeah, I'm like, go ahead, you don't have any issues. Now, when it goes to iOS 26, whenever that is going to be the day, there'll be some people, probably like me and Jeff, that will do it probably on the day that it comes out. And some of you that might want to be just a little more careful, I think that would be okay, right, Jeff? We know there's going to be some things that will change on that, including the way that your icons are going to look, right? I thought this was a good article you linked to today from Benjamin Mayo at 9to5Mac. When iOS 26 does come out, we've been talking about the liquid glass interface, and I like how he put all of these little screenshots together to give you a side-by-side comparison of what your new icons are going to look like in iOS 26.
Yeah. In terms of one last thing on when you update, I definitely know some people that say whenever Apple has a big update, and this will be a big one this year, just as a matter of course, they're going to wait for the 0.1 or the 0.01 or something like that, because there's always going to be something. That's up to you. But anyway, this liquid glass discussion is interesting, because what you and I have been talking about for a few weeks now, ever since Apple first previewed it, is, two things, a good and bad. The good liquid glass is that it looks cool. It really does look interesting. It's a fresh new look for the first time in a very, very long time. And it's interesting that, as you're moving like a button because it's sort of like it's like almost like it's a gel or something like that. You know, as things go under it, you can sort of see reflections, and just it looks really interesting. And there's also arguably a usability issue too, because you can see content below the buttons, which,
Right.
you know, may be useful, may not be useful. So that's the good part. And the bad part is people say, oh, well, sometimes because of this see-throughness, this transparency, it makes things hard to read. And, you know, people will show off like the Apple Music app, and like you're trying to read the name of the artist underneath the button
Right.
and you can't read it. So, you know, it's good, the bad. And I suspect, you know, it'll be somewhere in the middle. It'll be interesting. And there'll be cases where it doesn't work great, but other cases where it looks really good. But that's what I've been focusing on. So this article
Yeah.
talks about how another part of the interface is app icons look different, which means that if you're a third-party app developer, you're going to want to update your apps to be consistent with the new interface. And
Yep.
to have an example of that, or to see what we're going to have, what you're showing on your screen for folks looking at the video is the actual before and after. You know, here's what an icon looks like right now, and here's what it looks like with liquid glass.
Hmm.
And so as you can see, the ones with liquid glass are a little bit more transparent in different parts of the elements. In some cases, it's more subtle. In some cases, it's more noticeable.
It's a little
You know,
stark.
the one that you
Yeah.
just showed for was that shortcuts. I mean, it's or journal, excuse me. The journal changes are very, very subtle. It's really more of the
Right.
square around the icon. But then other things like everybody
Look at the
knows
mail,
the mail
the
icon, you know,
envelope.
the envelope.
Yeah.
It used to be a white envelope that you can't see through anything, like a real world envelope. Whereas
Right.
the new one has got just a little bit of sort of transparency to it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
One also that's interesting to me is if you scroll back up to the clock one, that one's
Yeah. I
interesting
saw
because
that. Look
the
at that.
clock app, that new clock app, what that
Whoa.
actually looks like is, and you actually saw it. Remember, one of the last times I brought my Vision Pro into my office and we used it for the podcast, I actually remember I showed you how you can take like a widget and you can
Oh
place it on a
yeah. You
wall,
stuck it on the wall.
and I actually showed you that it looked exactly like that, or almost exactly like that. And it
Oh
was really cool because it's
yeah.
right there on my wall in my office. And if I move around, the clock stays in place, and you can actually look close to it. You can actually see there's like 3D layers. The second hand is literally higher, it's above the other ones. And so this is a good example of, and it's a rare example of an icon. It's a widget in this
Hmm.
case, but the same idea. A picture from the Vision OS that they are now bringing to
Coming into
iPhone,
the
which is, you know,
phones.
something for
Yeah.
the masses. So that's sort of interesting. So, you know, you can argue for some of these if you think they're better or they're worse, but it just shows you how everything is going to change a little bit, even just on the icon level. And just another reason that it'll be a fresh new interface.
I feel like this is going to be a little more stark for people than maybe Apple realizes, because
Hmm.
we use these iPhones every day and people are just familiar with it. Now, you and I feel
Sure,
like we can
sure.
be a little bit more flexible and amenable, you know, to some of these changes on here. But some of these are a little stark. Like, I don't think it's enough that somebody's going to question it. Like, wait, what is that app? Like, I don't think it's quite that stark. Although, like, here's the Tips app. I mean, that looks a little bit different. You're going to have to
Yeah, yeah,
pause, I guess, is maybe what I'm saying. People are going to have to pause for maybe another second or two and be like, oh yeah, oh okay, yeah, that's the Safari app. It just looks a
yeah.
little bit different. I think that'll go away really quickly, but that is going to be a pretty stark difference, and that's what the first thing that so many people are going to see once they get into iOS 26.
And when you look at the side by side, like you're showing right now, it's very easy for your eye to see, oh, I can see what's
You're
different.
right.
But you know
Yeah,
what's going to actually happen, Brett, is you're not going to have the side by side. You're just going to be looking
that's
at your
true. You're
iPhone
right.
and you're like, something seems a little different about the mail app.
I
And
can't
you might not even think it's like, what is it? So that's how
I
it's going
can't
to
put my
actually
finger
play
on
out.
it.
Right,
Actually, you
right,
can
right.
put your finger on it. That's what you're supposed to do, is put your finger on it.
Done,
But
done. Yes.
you're right. It's like it'll be just subtle, but you're right. When you see it side by side, it is a lot more stark. You're right. Uh, we also know that there's going to be numerous little tweaks that hopefully will be improvements for iOS 26. Here's one you linked to today from Ryan Christoffel at 9 to 5 Mac. iOS 26 lets you keep AirPods audio from auto switching to speakers. Thank goodness. I don't know if you've experienced this too often. I don't do it too often because I feel like it's actually gotten a little bit better when I switch my AirPods between my Mac and my iPad and my iPhone. I'm not as frustrated with it, but there are times when it kind of goes the other way. Like, I don't want it to switch, right? And so hopefully iOS 26 is going to help with that a little bit too.
So there's two, you know, AirPod switching can occur in two different ways. And let's make sure we know what we're talking about, because you might be talking about
Yes,
the first way and
please.
this is the second
I
way.
think I am.
One way is I have my AirPods in my ears right now, and my AirPods are connected to my PC because I happen to be talking to you from my office where I've got my Dell computer running Zoom. Um, One feature of AirPods is that it can switch between one Apple device and another Apple device. So let's say I'm using it with my iPhone, and then I start playing a YouTube video on my iPad, and they're
Right.
both right here in front of me. The AirPod is smart
And it'll
enough
switch.
to switch to the AirPod, to
Yeah.
the iPad, which is really nice. And then if you're done on your iPad and you go back to listening to music or a podcast on your iPhone, it'll switch back, and you don't have to do any settings. You don't have to press any buttons. It just happens automatically. It works really well. Having said that, sometimes you don't want it to happen. Literally just this week,
Right.
I was having lunch in my office and I was listening to a podcast, and I happened to be looking at something on my iPad at the same time, and a video came up, and I'm like, I want to keep listening to my podcast. I don't even want to listen to that video.
Right.
Or
Right.
if the audio comes on, just play it in the background.
Like a commercial
And yet,
sometimes that'll
oh
play.
god, that's a horrible
Yeah.
example. Yeah. And yet it switched over. And so that is one thing. That is not changing to my knowledge in iOS 26. What iOS 26 is changing is something different, which is where the audio coming out of your device. So let's say I'm using my iPhone to listen to a podcast, and
Okay.
I'm currently having the sound go to my AirPods, but I walk into a room that has a Bluetooth speaker. It could be a HomePod, or it could be something else,
Oh,
and it switches
okay.
over to that because it thinks, oh, this is what you normally listen to, and so what you really want to do is listen to it over there. And again, it's a useful feature if you want it. For some people, for example, if you walk into your car and you have wireless CarPlay, it will
That's
switch over to your
right.
car. And I'm like, yeah, thumbs
Good.
up. I actually want that to happen. But what happens if you walk into your house and you're listening to something and it switches over to the main speaker in your living room, and suddenly everybody in your family is listening to the podcast? That's not what you want. And so that is a feature that could be annoying not only to you, but to the others around you
Oh,
as well. And
yeah.
that is the feature that in iOS 26, when it comes out this fall, you can turn that off if you want.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and so, I think it looks like it's called, you're showing it right now, keep audio with
Keep,
headphones and that
yeah.
sort of stuff. So it's nice to have those more controls. But again, there's two different and it's tough
I'm
because
so
Apple is
glad you
trying to be so
confirmed that.
smart. They
Yeah.
want they want to do what you want automatically, which is great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it drives you crazy. So it's a tough
Absolutely.
situation. Yeah.
I'll give you, now that you mentioned, I'm so glad you clarified, because this morning, even this exactly happened. So I was upstairs in my bedroom getting ready for the day, and I had my iPhone playing through a Bluetooth speaker. Now, this is a JBL Bluetooth speaker that my wife and I will sometimes share. Right. So I'm playing my music away, just having a grand old time. Well, I knew that my wife was downstairs, and she started listening, I think, to a polo from a friend. Well, she had been using the Bluetooth speaker previously, and so where did that audio come out from her iPhone? It came into my speaker, right? So in other words, I knew that she had her AirPods in, because when I left her, she had her AirPods in. She could have used, that's exactly when she could have used this setting. Is that right, Jeff? Okay,
Yep.
good.
You got it
So
right. You got it right.
okay,
Yeah.
so that would have been great, because I remember I'm like, what happened to my music? And I jumped on and I hit play again, and it started playing my music again. But then obviously she was fighting with me downstairs, because she started playing her polo again, and then it jumped into my Bluetooth. And so I'm yelling like, "Hey, what's up with my music?" Okay, but okay, see, I need this now. We need this now, Apple. I have to wait to iOS 26. But okay, but thanks for clarifying, because that really helps quite a bit on that. Let's go to the watch. We've been talking about watchOS 26. Not always in the most favorable way, Jeff, I have to say. I mean, I am excited for watchOS 26. Do not get me wrong. And there are several great things coming up. But it seems like every story that we talk about, we have to land on the weird workout buddy that comes in here. This is another great article, a review from Jonathan Reed at MacStories. Goes into a lot of details, what we can expect with watchOS 26.
Yeah, and I'll say that, he does a really nice job. This Jonathan Reed review, I'm not as familiar with him as a MacStories writer, but he really does a great job of talking about the big important changes coming to the watch. He has some
Mm-hmm.
lots of pictures to show it off. So if you're interested in what your watch is going to look like in a few months, it's a good article. I recommend it. The one that you're focusing on, though, and that he does as well, is, a lot of these changes for the watch are going to have to do with workouts. And the Workout Buddy is the big new one, because that's something we don't have
Right.
now. Workout Buddy, remember, is something that when you're doing your workout, your watch will talk to you. It's actually coming from your iPhone, so you have to have your iPhone in the same room, but it is
Okay.
talking to you and it's saying, great job, you just passed 1 mile, or that was your best workout this week, or whatever sort of encouraging things, but it's specific to you. And so because it's specific, these are not pre-recorded. It's a computerized voice, although it doesn't sound like a computer, as you and I talked about in the past. It mimics the voice of one of the workout instructors on Fitness Plus. And I say one of them. I think there's 3 different voices or something like that. But so one of the things that he discloses in this article, which I did not know, is that in addition to commenting on the workout that you're doing right now, it will sometimes comment on what you're listening to. It might say something like, I'm just in this part I'm imagining. Let's say you're listening to an album from, I don't know, Oasis, and it says, okay, now let's get back to Oasis, or something like that. Or if you're listening to a podcast, it may say, let me get you back to the In the News podcast, or something like that. So something specific to you, which is interesting, and I suspect that they'll do more of this. It's obviously involving, I don't know if you call it AI or machine learning or just regular computer
To some
smarts,
extent,
but
yeah.
it's the idea of making it more personal to you and what you're doing. And I'm in favor of it. Now, you say, Jonathan in this article doesn't sound like he's thrilled about it. I mean, he makes it sound like it's the voice is that, and he didn't use the word creepy. He used some word in there. Here, I
It's
found the
like,
voices,
yeah. Go
bizarre
ahead.
familiarity. I can't put my finger on. He didn't seem that thrilled about it, but like I'm all in this. I think this sounds good. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm looking forward to this. So
My
interesting.
okay, well, he actually has this link. I didn't click through to this, but I'm sure this is the link. I remember this specifically from
That's from the
WWDC,
right. Yeah.
where they're showing this, and I remember you and I texted each other during this keynote presentation, and we're like, that sounds like Emily, Coach Emily, who
Yeah.
is one of the
It
Fitness
does.
Plus trainers,
Hmm.
and she's very, very exciting, and I enjoy her quite a bit, but you could just exactly what he says here. It's like she just sounded just a little off. It was a little bizarre hearing it, because I know what she sounds like, and I've done several treadmill exercise sessions with Coach Emily, and she's fantastic. I love her, but it was just a little weird to hear it as sort of like almost like a robotic Emily on there. Somehow
Yeah.
it's a little weird. My hope, though, is I am looking forward to it, just like you are. I am, but it's got to get better. I think, this kind of stuff should be getting better, even if it starts out a little weird when it first comes out, a little bizarre. But the nature of AI and what it can do should be getting better as it goes through, and that's really what I'm hopeful on some of this.
Here's the quote that it was in there. He says, "The
Yeah.
enthusiasm level is not for me." That was his complaint. But as you and I
There
know,
you go.
Emily is an enthusiastic trainer.
Very enthusiastic.
She pumps you
Yes,
up. She
she
sometimes gives you
does.
that extra, and I think that's a good. I mean, I don't want my workout trainer to be like, "Oh, I guess you should do this now." No, I want
Right,
someone that's
right.
enthusiastic. So I'm here for it. So, anyway.
I just remember last week we talked about Dan Morin's piece, right, where he was specifically talking about how he likes Fitness Plus, but he has been more using that. It's the Nike app. I can't remember exactly what they
The
call it,
Run
but it's like
Club, I think it's called.
Run
Yeah, something like
Club,
that.
something like that, where they have live coaches, right? That somehow,
Sure.
well, I don't know if they're live while you're
Pre-recorded.
running, but
Yeah.
somehow it's live people pre-recorded, and he goes, that's much more interesting and engaging, because
Nah.
as humans, I think we can tell that this is a little off if it's sort of, but anyway, my hope is that it will get better, because it's going to start off a
Mhm.
little weird, that it will get better. The other thing quickly on the workout side, because all of these workout features, like you mentioned, Jeff, are sort of what's coming in watchOS 26. I am thrilled to see some of the new layouts here for the workout. He
Agreed.
talks about that there are other ideas like metrics and views, the experiences, some of the media on here. Like, I got to tell you, I'm okay with the way, like when I'm in the middle of a workout, to look down at my watch and I can see some of the metrics already. But I feel like there could be more. Like, I could take more time to learn it, but I don't want to take more time to learn it. I just want it to be a little more intuitive when I look down at my watch. And my hope that that's what's going to be happening with watchOS 26.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be 2 things. All of those statistics, number one, they can be spoken to you by the workout buddy,
Mm-hmm.
and number two, the interface is going to be refreshed, which, and both of those I am in favor of. So sounds
Yeah,
good to me.
absolutely. Well, let's go then to the iPad. And you and I have been talking about iPad with iPadOS 26, more specifically, is what I'm kind of referencing here. Somebody that we are very familiar with at MacStories, Jonathan, keep writing. We like you, but Frederico, Viticci, of course. There were two people really that I was looking forward to hearing about their experience with iPadOS 26, Jeff, and you linked to both of them today. One is from Frederico. We'll talk about him first. And then the second is Marques Brownlee, who you provided an excellent video today, which I just thought was excellent. But let's go to Frederico, someone who has I don't want to say it's a love-hate relationship because I think he's always loved the iPad, but it's almost like he's had like all iPad and not as much iPad, ups and downs, right? Because he was one of the first, I think, at least on a public level, to say, I am only using the iPad. And he wrote about it extensively. I mean, you can go back and see all
Mhm.
kind of his writing. But he is very encouraged, it sounds like, with the changes he has seen so far with iPad OS 26. In fact, he says, hello, it's good to be back.
Yeah. Federico has done a great job over the years talking how you can make the iPad your primary computing device.
Yes.
And for him, it was really all iPad all the time. Earlier this calendar year, he started using a MacBook more because he was frustrated that there were some things he couldn't do in the
Mm-hmm.
iPad, even though he found some real interesting ways to do workarounds. But what he's saying is, because iPad OS 26 is going to so fundamentally revolutionize the interface and everything else, he's now got that newfound enthusiasm for it. And you don't have to be an either or. It's okay to me if you want to make your iPad your primary computing device, that's fine. But like, for example, for most lawyers, I don't think that you're going to do that because you just need to use a PC or a Mac for, intensive word processing and stuff like that. But just because it's not your number one device doesn't mean that you don't want it to be a really good number two device. And also, there are many times, Brett, where I'm traveling or whatever it is, I have my iPad with me and I actually don't even bring a laptop. I just bring my iPad when I travel. So I
Right.
want that iPad to be able to step it up and be pretty close to be a computer substitute, even if it doesn't do everything. And so with new iPad OS, with the new windowing and the new multitasking features, it's getting a lot closer. And so these reviews do a
Yeah.
great job of talking about how because you have so much more flexibility with working with multiple windows, because you can, swipe down from the top or hover your cursor if you're using an external device,
Yeah.
and you can get the file, edit, view, the traditional windows that we're used to on a Mac or a PC. And all of the other features, you can just if you want to be productive, you can do a lot more. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to do it. There are many times, but both this review and I think Marques Brownlee talked about this as well. He's like, maybe 75% of the time, or you pick the percentage, you're going to be using an iPad with just one app at a time. And that's fine. And it works great for that. But then for that other smaller percentage of the time that you want to say, you know what, now I'm going to be doing a couple different things at once, you just switch over, and then
Yeah.
you can have multiple windows. And I do this all the time. I'm using one app, but
Right.
then now
Right.
I'm going to be in a mode where I'm in Mail, but I'm also in Safari, but I also am logging into things, so I want to have one password up and I want to be doing this, and you're just switching back
Yep.
and forth and being able to have things layered on top of each other, or they have these great things that you can automatically have it put two in a screen or four in a screen.
Right.
And you just have so much more flexibility, and you can go back and forth too. Marquez points this out in his video that you can go to iPad full screen, and then you click one button, or I forget where it is, and it goes right back
Control
to
center. Yeah.
wherever
Yeah.
that window was before. And that's not even, and what you're talking when you say control center, that's switching in and out of the modes. But even if you keep it in the new modern
Oh, I see.
mode,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Okay.
actually
Yeah.
temporarily make it, full screen, or even most of the time, and then go back. So there's just so much more flexibility. I've read about this since June when Apple
Yeah.
debuted it.
Right.
And I've seen some videos showing it off. And Federico's article is a good example of reading about it and talking and how he's actually using it. And I'm like, this is really inspiring. And then Marques Brownlee's video, because just it is a video on YouTube, when he actually
Yeah.
shows you, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, it's really, really powerful. And so again, both Federico and Marques do have sort of a bent of, can your iPad replace your computers at certain times? And that's fine if you want to think that way. But I'm here to tell you that you don't have to. I mean, that yes, you can think about that. But what's more important to me is the times that I'm working on my iPad. I
Right.
just want to be able to be more productive. And this new operating system, it really, everybody, even some of the detractors, the people like Harry McCracken for the Technologizer, who we talked about last week, he has more misgivings. Everyone agrees that this is a huge step forward. And you know, Brett, we have some years
Yeah.
where there are very few changes for the iPad in the release, and then some years, not as many, perhaps once every 4 or something years, that we get major releases, and this is a major one.
This is
This
it.
is
This is
going to
major.
be a
Yeah.
big one.
I'm going to go back real quick to one thing you said about lawyers needing a laptop or I don't personally think it's so much from like a power aspect. I mean, most of the time legal professionals are not going to be doing enough like video editing or audio editing that would really require the processing power maybe or the overhead of like a computer. But in this video that Marques has, one thing stood out to me. I think it was toward the end here where he was saying, I need to sign a PDF, which is something that a lot of lawyers, like, we would have to
Sure.
sign documents all the time. And his point was, with the iPad, can you do this? Yes, but it took like 2 or 3 additional steps. And he even just said, he goes, I had to figure this out. Like, I had to stop and think, okay, this is an iPad, I've got to put it in here first. Do I open it in, share into Chrome, and then sign
Hmm.
it, and then share it back? And the point that I get to is, could a lawyer use an iPad in this way? Absolutely. But the thing is, Jeff, that just seems like it's too many steps. Like, in other words, can a lawyer use an iPad as your replacement for a laptop? Yeah, but it's just going to take some additional learning. And frankly, I don't know that we have the time or the patience in order to do that, because all of these workflows have come around for so long on the computers, whether it's a Mac or a PC, and we're just familiar with it. And it just seems a little more seamless. And I feel like that is sort of the hurdle a little bit for, maybe sort of professionals like us, from that standpoint on using that.
I hear what you're saying, and I hear what Marquez is saying, and there are certainly some times where I do agree with you, Brett. But I will actually push back a little bit because, and I know the part of the video you're talking about where he says, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to sign a document on a computer than on an
Right.
iPad." I'm like, that one actually struck me as odd because I'm like, I actually think it's easier sometimes to do this on an iPad. Maybe that's just
I get where
me.
you're going. Yeah.
When I'm on my computer in the PDF program that I use on my PC, I actually have my signature saved as a stamp, and so I can
Same.
apply it to a document. So yeah, I
Yep.
guess that is, I mean, I guess I can do that pretty quickly, and I do that from time to time. But sometimes on my iPad, when I'm working with documents and adding things and annotating, and especially because of the Apple Pencil, I actually find it a
Yes,
lot easier to do
exactly.
it. And there are so
Yep.
many times that I actually find the opposite. I'm sitting here at my office like I am right now, and I have my computer screen in front of me and my iPad right here. There are every single day, there are times that I'm doing something on my computer and I tell myself, wait a minute, this is going to be so much easier to do on my iPad. And I'll switch over there and I'll
Yep.
do it on my iPad. So it goes both ways. And I'm a strong
You're
advocate
right.
of the
You're
best
right.
tool for the job. And this is, I guess, what I was getting to before. The people that feel like they need to say, I love the iPhone and everything I do is on my iPhone. Like, okay, good for you. But the iPhone is a tool, and the things that it does well, I want the iPhone. The things that the iPad does best, I want the iPad, and I want those things to get
Absolutely.
more. I want an
Yes.
expansion of it. The
Yes.
things that the Mac or the PC do best, that's fine too. But so anyway, so I happen to disagree with him on whether it takes more or fewer steps to do signing things on an iPad than a computer. But the point is the same. Everybody's going to have their own things. There are some things that you're going to find easier to do on a computer. Goodness knows I do.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
fine, do it. But for the things that you might like to use an iPad for, I love having that universe expand, that I can do more in a way that's still just as easy, so that I just have more options, so that those times that I
Right.
do
Right.
have only the iPad with me because I'm sitting on my couch in my living room and I just want to have an iPad, I just want to have a tablet with me. I don't want to have to get up and say, oh, this next thing I need to do, I need to go and go walk to a computer and do it. I want to be able to just stay there on my iPad, or I'm traveling. I'm in the hotel room. I just have my iPad. So anyway, again, I cannot be more excited about this fall.
I
Videos like
know.
this from people that really get it. Marquez, Federico, they're very insightful, and I just learn a lot reading and hearing what they say.
Well, the big takeaway we have been discussing for a while, and both Frederico and Marquez kind of double down on this, is like that gap between a MacBook Pro even and an iPad Pro is just getting so much smaller. In fact, one of the places in this video from Marques, he puts the MacBook Pro and the iPad Pro with a keyboard side by side, and he's like, it's about the same weight,
Yeah.
it's about the
Yeah.
same height, and pretty much the same price. The both of them together, he goes from that, that physical aspect, it's almost no difference. At the very end of this video, so we'll make sure we link to this. I thought he did just a great job of like, okay, if you are, kind of looking to determine whether you go for a PC like a MacBook Pro or an iPad Pro, well, first of all, he says, think of the 5 things that you do, just similar to, I think, what you were just saying too, Jeff. The 5 things that you mostly do. Would you rather do that on a PC or a laptop, or would you rather do it on an iPad? But then the other thing I just like at the very end, he's talking about, if the iPad Pro can almost be like a MacBook Pro, then the iPad has cameras on the back, like that's something more. The iPad is all touchscreen, right? Whereas on the MacBook Pro, you don't have a touchscreen aspect on that. And then again, back to your point, you got the stylus. You're absolutely right. To your point, what I was saying, like when I'm reading a PDF file and I pull it up on my MacBook Pro and I start getting to a point where I want to highlight something or I want to write in the margins, I don't do that on my MacBook Pro. I literally pick up my iPad right next to me and I pull up that same PDF that I've shared through Dropbox or whatever, and I work on it right on my iPad in front of my MacBook Pro, because that is an easier thing for me to do because I use the stylus and I do my highlighting and writing notes in the margin. I love living in this world where I've done for several years now with an iPhone, a MacBook Pro, and an iPad Pro, because I can have that continuity, and I talk about that on a higher level than what I think Apple is saying. But anyway, just wanted to point that out. We'll obviously link to both the story from Frederico and the video from Marques, but they're both worth your time, I think, if you are as excited as Jeff and I are about iPadOS 26. And even if you're not, it would be great just to, if you got to watch one, do the Marques video, I feel, Jeff, because I just think he does such a great job of kind of comparing everything. And to your point, he answers a lot of my questions about how do we get to the file menu on an iPad. Well, he answers that, right? To where you can like swipe down once and get the file menu, swipe down again to get maybe that, the notifications panel and everything. Just a brilliant all around good video on that for sure. Let's switch to a couple of other news items that you linked to. Many of you out there might be using Microsoft Teams for better or for worse. I think a lot of people like it for better. It's great. I'm not pointing to saying anything. Many people use Zoom, but often when I work with anybody that is in a bigger organization, Jeff, in fact, including your law firm probably,
Sure.
Microsoft Teams is the way to go. And I am thrilled to see that Microsoft is continuing to play some updates. They just released an update for Teams 7.13.0 that now supports multi-window chat support on here, which is good.
Yeah, the Teams app for the iPad, it's really good. And many big offices, mine included, most people think of Microsoft Teams as a video conferencing platform, an alternative to Zoom. And it is that. It certainly is that, of course. It's very good at that. But it has other things too. It has chat features and it has, all sorts of advanced features. And the iPad app is very useful. Many times I just have my iPad with me, and whether I'm with, or even my iPhone too, for chat purposes. But I like the fact that I can do a chat within Teams just on my iPad, and I can do conferences and stuff. But what this article by Riley Hale points out is that they have an update to the app that I haven't seen it work yet. But what he's talking about is you can have the chats and channels in different windows. My firm doesn't currently use the channels feature, so I'm not seeing this, but I like the idea that within the app, it doesn't have to be everything on the screen at one time. You can apparently layer things and have different windows. That is always a good idea, but it especially seems relevant as we were approaching this, a world of iPadOS 26, as we just discussed, where Windows is going to be a bigger deal. So Teams is a useful app. It's a big part of my law practice, and I'm glad that Microsoft is continuing to advance it.
We have a Where You At segment coming up. But before we do that, Jeff, let's just take a couple of moments to talk about our sponsor today, Lit Software. Let me bring up their webpage again here. Lit Software is a company, as I said, that started, I think, around the middle to end of 2010, right after the iPad came out, because the developer, Ian O'Flaherty and Tara Cheever, who co-founded Lit Software, knew that the iPad was going to be something pretty amazing. And they did a lot of trial support or trial presentation support in their, I guess, former career, even though they continue to do that even today. But they decided, hey, this iPad, there's something here. There's something that we can do based on our experience. And that's when they first came up with this app called Trial Pad, which obviously is for trial presentation. They now have a whole suite that you can get: the Trial Pad app, Transcript Pad, Doc Review Pad, Timeline Pad, and there's a couple of other ones that called like Exhibit Pad. But we are thrilled to have them back as sponsors. We've known them for a long time, and we are very big fans of their apps, not just because we talk about them, but because we use them as well, even in our professional life. So we're thrilled to have Lit Software back in sponsoring us, and that you can find more information at litsoftware.com, Jeff.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about for Lit Software, we've talked in the past about the individual apps, and there are just
Yes.
so many good ones. I mean, the new timeline pad came out earlier this year, which is really cool for
Yeah.
creating timelines, which for litigators is just so important. The ones that I use, the one that I use the most is Transcript Pad, which I love. I am, as a litigator, I am often taking depositions, or maybe somebody else in my firm is taking, an associate that I'm working with is taking the depositions, and I'm reviewing them. And when you get those deposition transcripts, I mean, this is just, I was just
Right.
talking about things that work even better on your iPad than your computer. This is one for me.
This is
I
one.
always review transcripts using Transcript Pad because it's just so easy to put codes on it. Like yes, you can highlight something, but it's more than highlighting it. It's saying, I'm not just highlighting this because it's important. I'm highlighting this because it is important for this issue in my
Mm-hmm.
lawsuit, and that this one is important for a different issue in my lawsuit. And so after you go through an entire transcript or multiple transcripts, then with just one tap, I can create a report of, I want everything that I said was important on the issue of, whether the stoplight was red or green. Just take a simple example. And it's just right there. And, oftentimes as I'm putting together my motion for summary judgment in a case, with just one tap, I can pull up all of the testimony that's relevant to it so that I can see it and I can draft my brief associated with it. So that's
Right.
Transcript Pad. Trial Pad, of course, is just the king. I mean, when it comes to, walking around a courtroom in front of the jury, or just a judge tried case, if you have it, and you want to be able to, have things on your iPad that you display on the screen for the trier of fact to look at, and you want things to sort of come out and get bigger and highlight and annotate. I mean, you can look like a total pro by
Yeah.
having Trial Pad.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So those are the individual apps. We've talked about that in the past, but I think the thing to talk about today about this Lit Suite is, when you purchase the Lit Suite, you get all these apps just as part of a subscription.
That's
And you
right.
can buy it for yourself if you want. I think it's $600, so like $50 a month for, it's cheap in terms of legal software. It's a very good deal. But if you work for a larger organization, like a larger law firm, or a larger company that has a bunch of lawyers, you might want to have a bunch of your folks using this, and Lit
Yeah.
Software totally will work with that. It can be very frustrating to pass around just a single iPad to different team members just because that's the
Right.
iPad that happens to have Trial Pad or Transcript Pad on it. And you don't want to do that. That's patchwork stuff. So Lit Suite has something called an enterprise program, where if you have 10 or more licenses site wide, you can have it that, the entire team, partners, paralegals, associates can work
Yes.
seamlessly on the products because you all have access to the software. And it could even be, collaborating with co-counsel. You can sync case materials. So like you go through and you do the transcripts, and then you have somebody else look at them. And the nice thing about the enterprise program is, first of all, you save some money, depending upon the size of it, which is good. But you have all these other
Right.
advantages too. You can, I mean, even just the way that you pay for it, you can pay for it like outside of the App Store through, purchase agreements, or the types of things that your firm would typically
That's right.
use for purchasing software. You can decide when it starts, when it stops. There's even flexibility. Like you can say, I'm going to have 20 licenses at my law firm, but it doesn't have to just be the same 20 people. Not just because, like, what if like somebody new comes to your firm or something, but you may say, for this couple of months, here's the people that need this. But after that, their trial's over and they're moving on to the next product. And now I want to reallocate that license to a different set of people in my organizations. And you have that flexibility that, that you can be efficient and stuff with the the enterprise program. So if you work for a larger organization, whether it's a law firm or in-house counsel or whatever it is, you will want to look into this because I think that it's really useful.
I
Um,
just say a couple more things on there because,
yeah,
again, you mentioned most people will buy a Lit Suite license, and you do that to associate it with your Apple ID, Jeff. So if you were to go on your iPad and you went to the App Store and you purchased the Lit Suite software, that's tied to your Apple ID. So you can't like freely give that to somebody. You were mentioning like passing an iPad around. But I just want to tell folks, because I've worked with this sometimes with the enterprise program. Lit Software has done a fantastic job of being able to let you assign these licenses. If you purchase this as an enterprise, you can assign the licenses to different Apple IDs, or in some cases, some law firms, Jeff, do have like a firm iPad, right? It's not assigned to anybody specifically. Well, of course, the iPad has to have some kind of an Apple ID, but if you have an enterprise version of this, then you can assign a special license to a specific like firm iPad. So it doesn't have to be like assigned to a certain person, and they can help you work on the back end to like reassign that. If somebody leaves, you can reassign that license to somebody else, so that they're not just walking out the door with it that way. So I just wanted to mention that, because every time that I've answered questions about this, it's typically from the logistical aspect of like, well, how do we do that? Like, how do we assign the licenses? Lit Software has figured that out. They do an excellent job. And also from the logistical side, this is compatible with MDM solutions, mobile device management solutions. So most larger organizations will use, like, I think it's called Intune or some of these other, Mobile Iron or whatever it was, that will manage these mobile devices. And the enterprise version of the Lit Software licenses will work with that. So don't let that be an impediment as well. And then lastly, I would say, they put in some complimentary training hours. If you get an enterprise license, they throw in some additional training for free. So they've got a great page here. You can see I'm reading from with all some of these frequently asked questions about the enterprise program. Definitely worth going and checking it out if this could be applicable to you.
Yeah, we'll finish up by I'll say that if your company, if your firm has 10 or more team members, litigators,
Yes,
paralegals, associates, whatever,
that's right.
who you think can use these tools, the LitSweep Enterprise program really is for you. And so what you can do to get more information is send an email, reach out to hello@litsoftware.com, hello@litsoftware.com, and they will guide you through the process for this. And here's a special bonus. When you send
What?
that email, if you mention the In the News podcast, that you heard us talking about
Hey,
it
that's
in your
us.
email, you will get an additional license for free. So you want 20
Whoa.
licenses, you get that 21st one for free. So thank you to Lit Software for sponsoring the podcast today. And thank you for all the fantastic tools that they've been providing for, 15 years now. And thank you also for the special promotion for listeners.
Yeah, no kidding. A free license. I mean, that's huge. So
There you
just
go.
send an email, hello@litsoftware.com. Tell them that Brett or Jeff sent you, or just mention In the News. A free extra license. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna email them and say, hey, I heard it on In the News. Can I get an extra license too? Great stuff there. Let us know. If you have any other questions, you can tell both Jeff and I are pretty big fans, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have on there as well. Where you at segment.
Where
Let's
you
do a
at?
where you at segment. I love this because if you've ever had a need to track your kids, sometimes you put an AirTag maybe in their backpack, but the backpack can get left somewhere, right? Well, typically they're not going to leave their shoes somewhere, hopefully not. But thank you to Skechers. FindMy Skechers. And it's not just like throwing an AirTag like in the shoe, right? And just hope it doesn't, fall out. No, they've got like a secure compartment in the bottom of these brand new Skechers. Thanks for reporting on this, Jeff. It's very important.
Yeah, the idea of putting an AirTag on your child is not new, and in fact, even putting it on the
Right?
shoes is not new. That you can buy these things. I think they're on Amazon. That like you lace it in with the shoelaces, and it
Oh,
holds the
yeah, on the
AirTag.
top.
But this is really nice because it is part of the shoe. First of all, it's hidden, so somebody else can't see it. And it puts it very securely inside of the shoe. And I pointed out that way back in the day of the iPods, gosh, 20 years ago, they used to have the Nike Plus iPod activity tracker, which was this little bitty fob type thing, and it was the
Yeah.
same thing. You bought a special Nike shoe. I bought one. I bought multiple ones, and you lift up the insole thing, and you put in the tracker, and you put it back down. You totally could not feel it when even if you're running and stuff. I could not feel it, and it put that tracker in there. And so that same idea, you can now put the AirTag in there. Now, you can talk about whether you're tracking your kids is appropriate, is inappropriate, is it the best thing since sliced bread, or is it creepy? I certainly have no trouble with tracking my younger child, to
Right.
find out where they
On
are.
their phone. Right.
I will share a story here. This was in the
Oh,
old
good.
technology days. I don't know if I've told the story in the past. Back in 1984, the World's Fair came to New Orleans. It was a huge deal. It was totally fun. I mean, this was a major thing. It also didn't make a lot of money. But I remember that during the World's Fair, I was there with my mom and my siblings and my little brother, who you've met before, Brett. But back in 1984, he was like, I don't know, 3 years old. And he was with us. And there was a whole bunch of people at the world's, imagine like Disney World. It was that sort of thing. Tons of
Sure.
people, tons of places.
Lots of
And
people.
suddenly he got interested in something and he ran off towards it. And suddenly, like, we couldn't
Oh,
see
no.
him. And my whole family for like 10 seconds was like, oh my gosh, where is he? And then sure enough, as we're looking around, because he's 3 years old, where could he be? We see some guy walking by with the child on his shoulders, and my little brother was there. This person was smart enough to say, if I put him on my shoulders, maybe others can find
They'll
him, and
see.
we did find him. So that was back in the mid 1980s when
That's
technology was,
old Find My
Byzantine. But
technology.
nowadays, if your, little brother or your child, if you have these sneakers on them and they do run off because they're interested little kids and they want to go see something and you don't know where they are, goodness, hope that doesn't happen. But if it does, you could find them with this. Or if they're just at
Oh
school
boy.
and you just want to know, after school, where are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
So you decide whether that's creepy or whether that's appropriate. I know a lot of people that say that I gave, my kid is too young for an iPhone, but I'm letting them have an Apple Watch with most of the features
Uh-huh.
turned off,
Right.
specifically so that I can track them, and specifically so that they can call me or text me. So if you're in that lifestyle, and again, I think it's totally appropriate. I could totally see these shoes making sense for you. So it's interesting to Skechers that they came out with this type of shoe. I'm almost surprised it hasn't happened before now. So
Or if your kid just loses their shoes a lot, this would be
yeah,
good to
also good.
throw
You can
that in.
find your shoes.
I don't know if you could see. I mean, I had this video playing. It's not like they just kind of, you slip it in the side. Like, no, there's like an actual hidden
An actual
compartment
compartment.
underneath
Yeah.
the little insole that you put into the shoe and you click it in there. And I don't know if it's like locked or something. They say it's a secure compartment. I don't know if you
Hmm.
need that much of a lock and key for your AirTag in the shoes, but I just thought that was great. Thanks for reporting on such an important component on there. Staying with the Where You At segment, just real quick. Great little story you linked to from Marcus Mendez at 9 to 5 Mac. 30 airlines now allow you to share AirTag luggage tracking with them. We talked
Hmm.
about this several weeks ago when it first came out, and there was like one or two, I think United and maybe Delta or somebody. But now there are 30 airlines to where we know that the AirTag is great for tracking luggage. I've even personally used it. I think you have too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
But
yes.
the
Oh
fact
yes.
that you can just track it yourself. But what if you could share this with the airline? Because even in my experience, I remember I went and showed the gate agent my iPhone to say, look, there it is. But now I can share it with the airline so that we're both tracking it, which I think is really cool.
I try not to check bags when I travel as much as possible.
Same.
Sometimes you just can't help it. It's a big vacation thing and you're not gonna be able to carry everything. And, I always get sort of nervous. Are they going to lose my luggage? Where is it? So I love being able to track my luggage. Every one of my suitcases has a little thing on them to hold an AirTag. And I really like that so many airlines are now letting you work with them so that, hey, you guys need to go get it because it's on the tarmac or it's at the wrong gate or it's at a
Right.
different place there.
Right.
I can't go there. You can, but now I can share with you this information so that you
Nice.
can find it. And, for those of us here in the US, it's now working on American Airlines, Delta, and United, which is great.
Yep.
Most of my personal travel happens to be on Delta, but my number two airline for me personally is probably Southwest, and
Okay.
Southwest is not an airline that currently supports the
Ooh,
program.
ouch.
So, hopefully they'll get on the program as well. But we now have 30 of them, so the number is getting, and these are worldwide, all around the world.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that more and more airlines are getting on board for this. I think every airline should offer this service.
Yeah, there's a lot of great UK, Europe based out here. But in the US, in addition to the big three, JetBlue is
Mhm.
also on there now, and Breeze Airlines, which flies out of the Akron
Oh,
Canton
I didn't
Airport.
actually see JetBlue.
Yeah.
I put them one in my
Yeah.
example in my post of the one
I,
that did not have it. Oh, good. I'm glad that I'm
yeah.
wrong about that. So JetBlue does have it, but I
Yeah.
am right though. The Southwest still does not. Yeah.
I do not see Southwest. Ouch.
Hmm.
That's like a big oversight, I feel like, on there.
Yeah.
But okay, good reporting on that. In the show, we talked last week about a nice little video from none other than the big Apple leaguer, Tim Cook himself, who put a picture of Ted Lasso and the gang from Ted Lasso sitting at a Kansas City barbecue joint. Well, now we kind of know why. A week later, we don't just have a fun feeling to look forward to one additional a season of Ted Lasso. Apparently, there's like 3 more seasons coming out, which I can't wait.
Sometimes you have a beloved TV show that's over and it will come back and it will have like its Christmas show, or like you'll get one more
Right.
opportunity to
A
be with the
special
people. And
little
that's
thing.
always fun. Exactly. A little special. But this is, and so I thought that when they said another season of Ted Lasso, I thought it might be the same, but I love the fact that no, according to Deadline, which is obviously one of the more industry trade publications,
Right.
the key actors have been signed to a 3-year contract, which is also consistent
Whoa.
with, I remember when Jason Sudeikis was talking about first conceiving of Ted Lasso, the original show, he said that he had a 3-season arc in mind. And of
Right.
course, now that we've all watched it, we know what
Right.
that season arc was of, going from the what is it, relegated? I forget all the terms there, but they went from one league to another, and then of course they eventually win at the end, which is as you would expect. And so it's a an open secret that the thing that's going to be for the next version of Ted Lasso is it's going to be a women's soccer team, which will be a little
Oh,
different. And what you're showing on your screen right now is apparently we know some of the actors
the
that have
team.
been signed
Yeah.
up. Now don't get me wrong. Apparently, some of the soccer players that you know and love from the original Ted Lasso series, this article says that they have been, they're going to come back and do cameos from time
Oh,
to
good.
time.
Okay.
So if
Like
you if you
Brett
want to get
Goldstein. We got to
like
have
Brett,
Brett
well, Brett
Goldstein,
is of
right?
course
Yeah.
going to be a key part of it because he's one of the
Yes.
writers and stuff. But like
Okay, good.
Jamie Tart or the what was the guy that football is all of those characters will come back from time to
Oh,
time, and
yeah.
that's
He's
that's
from like
that's
Argentina or Chile or something,
exactly.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're going to come back. So, but no, this is great. So with a 3-story arc, and I'm sure that Apple has not announced this, but I'm sure that they have committed to all 3 seasons. It means we're going to get a robust story. It's going to have a full season beginning, the full season middle, and then the full season end. I'm excited. Hopefully the magic will still work, and that the next three seasons will be just as delightful and funny and charming as the first 3 seasons. So this makes me excited.
Jeff and I talk a lot about Apple TV Plus. If you have not subscribed yet, there's several options. Anytime you buy a new Apple device, I think you get 3 months for free. You can try it out. But every once in a while, in addition to the subscription, Apple will run it's like deals on certain rentals or promotions to purchase different movies. And it looks like they got a few going on right now. You can get the Hangover trilogy for $9.99. That's pretty good because they're usually a little bit more expensive than that. Looks like there's a few other deals that are available right now too.
Yeah, so every day it's a different deal. And so there was 3 that have happened so far. They had the Hangover
Okay.
trilogy, then they had the Men in Black trilogy. Yesterday it
Oh,
was all
yeah.
the Harry Potter's movies for $40.
Whoa.
And I'm looking on my iPhone right now. So I just went to my iPhone and I opened up the
Okay.
TV app. And if you tap on the store button, and I see that today's deal for Friday is the summer deal of the day is, oh, this is too funny. It's the vacation. It's the National Lampoon Vacation series. So National Lampoon's Vacation, European
Great.
Vacation, Christmas Vacation, Vegas Vacation.
All the
So if you
vacations.
exactly, so if you're a fan of the
Wally
Vacation
World.
series, you can get
That's
all of
great.
them for whatever the price is. And so anyway, I typically don't buy movies, but I know that some people do, and they say that's nice. So this is pretty good. You get, what is it, 5 movies for $10. So that's pretty
That's a
good.
good
Oh, I
deal.
see. Because I'm like, what is this last one? The last one is, there's a movie, I totally forgot about this. There's a movie called Vacation, which it came out more recently. So instead, it came out in 2015. So instead of starring Chevy Chase, it stars, oh, what is this actor's name? He was in The Office, Ed Helms. Is that, yeah, Ed Helms. Apparently
Oh,
Ed Helms
okay.
plays the father. Yeah, I do remember that this came out. So if you want, the 4 quote unquote original Chevy Chase movies and the other one, $10 for 5 movies, $2 a piece, you
Good
own them,
deal.
you can watch them forever. Not a bad
Yeah.
idea.
And I just quickly say Apple does a very good job. Like any of the movies that I've purchased over the years, which isn't a whole lot of them, but I can still find them. Even the ones that I
Yeah,
purchased years ago, like they do a
me
very good
too.
job of keeping that organized to where you can get access to them and go back to them if you ever wanted to, which is
Back
really
before the
nice.
iPhone, when I used an iPod in like
Yes.
2005, I remember purchasing through Apple. Remember that series Lost, which was such a big series? And I remember purchasing
Hmm.
Lost so that I could watch it. This sounds silly now on my tiny little iPod
On your
screen. I would sort of
iPod?
curl up on my couch, and I would watch it. But those Lost episodes, that season one that I purchased in 2000, I think it was around 2005,
Yeah.
2006. I still quote unquote own them. And if I wanted to watch them on my
And you
big
could,
Vision
oh,
Pro, my
nice.
license is still there. I could still go
Oh
back and
boy.
watch it. In fact, I probably should. That first episode of Lost was really good. One of these days I should go back and watch it again. So anyway.
Couple of deals right before we get into our tips for the day. You mentioned that Amazon has a really good deal right now on the 2025 MacBook Air 13-inch laptop with an M4. What is the price? $799. That's incredible. That's like 20% off.
Yeah, so I mean, this is like $1,000 computer, and don't get me wrong, this is a heck of a computer. I mean, this MacBook Air,
Amazing.
this is the new 2025 edition. It's got the M4 processor, which means not only is it super fast today, but like if you're buying something for a college freshman or a high school freshman, wouldn't it be nice
Yeah.
to have something that's
Yeah.
going to remain a solid computer for the next 4 years? This is it. And you can debate whether the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air is better. The processor is the same in both. The MacBook Pro just gets you some extra hardware features like a nicer screen and more input in and out and stuff like that. But I think that for most people, the MacBook Air is the sweet spot. And that's been true for years.
Yes.
People love the
I
MacBook
totally
Airs.
agree.
And so you can get, even this entry version of the MacBook Air is really all that a lot of people need. It's got 16 gigs of memory. You might want to add more, but if you get the basic one, it's a fantastic computer. And to get it for $800, $799, that's a pretty good deal. And the other one that's on there too on Amazon is you can get the watch that you own, which is what the the,
Yeah.
the Apple
No,
Watch Ultra.
this
And
is,
actually, you have the
I
regular
wish.
Ultra.
I
This is the
do. I had
Ultra
the first.
2. Now,
Right.
keep in mind, there is a rumor that Apple might come out
Yeah,
with an Apple Watch Ultra 3.
exactly.
So keep that in mind that in the next month or two, we might have an update. So maybe that's why they have a discount. But, I suspect that we'll see how big of a difference there is between the 2 and the 3. This Apple Watch Ultra 2 might be perfectly fine for you. And instead of spending $800, you can get it for 650,
Yeah,
649 technically. So
that's
that's a
amazing.
good deal. So that's one good set of deals. But you told me just this morning you found another interesting set of deals, right?
Well, so just quickly, I'm going to say, going back to that MacBook Air, it looks like
Uh-huh.
all four colors are actually on sale, which I don't normally see. Sometimes, it's just the black that's on
Oh,
sale
I
and the other
agree. Right,
colors,
right,
but
right.
all of them are on sale. And that bottom entry level, just like you were saying, Jeff, is 16 gigs of RAM. And the hard drive, though, the SSD is 256. But if you did want to upgrade that just a little bit, this is still an amazing deal. You have 16 gigs of RAM. If you wanted up to 512 gigs for your SSD,
Mm-hmm.
it only goes up $200, which is typical for Apple. So that's $999 if you wanted to get that 512 gigabyte. That's still an amazing deal, either way that you go. And again, it looks like all of those colors are on sale. But the other thing that I did bring up is I know that every year Apple typically has some kind of a back to school promotion, right?
Right,
Now,
right.
they will typically at any time, if you go in through the educational store, we've talked about this before, or you go into a physical store and say you're buying it, for education purposes, kids in college or kids in school, whatever, you usually get, I think it's only a 10% discount, right? I think that's kind of the standard across the board that Apple will give you a 10% discount on this. But typically, leading up into August, they'll also have a promotion. They don't publicize this a whole lot, but in the past, it has been sometimes you can get like a gift card back. Like if you buy a MacBook Pro, you can get $150 back, as a gift card, and then you can turn around and use that on something else. In other times, they have offered like you buy a MacBook and we'll throw in a pair of AirPods, not the Pro typically, but a pair of AirPods or something like that. In the past, I think as you buy an iPad, you get a stylus. So they've kind of done a little bit of this on this as well. They have kicked this back to school sale off. You can go and look at it. Now you can't use this in conjunction with the Amazon price, but if you go through the special Apple educational portal or you go into an Apple physical store, you can say, I want to buy one for my kid in school. You get a discount. But you can also get up to $129 with iPads or $199 with Macs to purchase other accessories. There's only a few things that you can purchase. I think some of it is like a keyboard or AirPods Pro or a Magic Trackpad or something like that. But it's worth going. I'll put this link from PC Mag in there. This is going on right now. But again, you have to go through Apple in order to get this, but it sometimes can be a very good way to get not just an iPad or a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, but then you can get an accessory for that with a little bit off on as well.
Yeah, good deals.
Like that. In the know,
In the
one
know.
of your links today, Jeff, I thought was really interesting. This is at 6colors, but not from Jason or Dan. This is Glenn Fleischman, who some of you may know that name. He's been around for a long, long time. Glenn
Long
has
time.
always been excellent. And of course, have known both Dan and Jason Snell for a long time. And I just have been really enjoying his articles on 6colors.com. One you linked to today, don't overpay for cellular data while traveling. Now, I know both you and I have stories in the past of swapping SIM cards is one of the ways that people will do this. So for example, if you're traveling over to Europe or, South America or somewhere else where your typical cellular plan isn't covered, one of the ways you could do this is when you got into Europe, you could literally take out the physical SIM card of your phone and replace it with like a local SIM card. Or one of the things that you discussed in here as well, when you went to Italy a couple of years ago or so, Jeff, you just paid AT&T extra. I forget, it was like $10 a day or something
I
like
think
that.
I
To where,
paid $10 a day. Apparently it's now
yeah,
$12 a day. My memory is I paid $10 a day at the time, but yeah.
and that gave you the ability to continue to use your phone even though you're in Italy and not typically where AT&T. And some people will just do that because it is very easy. You just have to pay a little bit extra, but you don't have to swap anything. You don't have to do anything. Well, one of the things when I took my family to Europe over the holidays is I got a little deep into eSIMs. So this is where basically you don't have a physical SIM card, and most iPhones today, I think after the iPhone 10 or something like that, or maybe the 10 the XS is what Glenn says here, that it actually doesn't have a physical SIM card in there, or if it does, it's like it can be overwritten or something like that. Anyway, gone are those days where you need to actually swap out a physical SIM card, unless you're Jason Bourne or something, right? That you're doing something else like that. But today, what you can do is you can just basically download an app. So one of the things that I did when we went to Europe is I researched all of these, and Glenn at the very bottom here has some excellent comparisons. He talks about the different systems that you can get into here, right? Yeah. Airalo, Airalo. That's one that a lot of people know. Holafly, Holafly. But one of the ones that I decided on was, I call it Saily, but it's Saily, Saily. And one of the reasons is because before we travel, I knew that I wanted to do two things for me and the family. One, I wanted a VPN because we went overseas, we were at a hotel using the Wi-Fi there. I wanted a good VPN. Well, there's many of them out there. One of the more popular ones is NordVPN, Nord VPN. Well, I went ahead and got like a family plan of NordVPN. Well, NordVPN has several other options and services that they offer, including they own this Saily option. And I compared them all, and there's some that are better, and there's a bunch of YouTube videos out there if you want to go down the rabbit hole like I did. But Saily just seemed like it was the easiest thing for me to do. And it was as easy as this, Jeff. I downloaded the Saily app. I didn't really get any much of a discount or anything because I had NordVPN. It was just kind of easy. It's a separate app than the NordVPN app. But I downloaded the Saily app. You go in and you can just say, I want to purchase, 10 gigabytes for 30 days, or there's multiple ways you can do it. You can pay $50 for unlimited, whatever. But in the case when we got overseas, I literally went into my cellular. In fact, I think I've got a little image here that I can just show you. I went into our phones and I turned off my AT&T cellular plan. So you can go into your cellular in your settings and you can say, I want to turn off AT&T. And then at that point, I knew that I wouldn't be able to get phone calls on my AT&T number, because if I did, it would be extraneous. It would be crazy cost because they would be calling a U.S. number while I was overseas. But then I turned on the eSIM. So you can see you actually will list your eSIMs in your cellular settings app, and you can turn them off and on. So when we were overseas, I only turned on the Saily eSIM, turned off my AT&T. Now, some of you may be asking, well, wait a minute, how did you make phone calls? Well, first of all, we didn't make any phone calls. We didn't do any phone calls while we were there. If I needed to communicate with somebody, I would have typically just texted, because the eSIM that we purchased was data only. So you need to know that before you get into any of this eSIM. And Glenn, I think, goes into some of the details on this too, Jeff, that you can get eSIMs that are both voice and data, but I just knew we did not need any voice. I wasn't planning on making phone calls. I didn't need to. There were other ways that I could get access to it if I needed to. Although I will tell you, at one point I did use the Skype app while we were there to make a phone call to the United States, because the Skype app will work over data Wi-Fi and I didn't get
Or
charged anything.
FaceTime too. You could have done a FaceTime audio call
FaceTime,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So exactly, Jeff. So that's the way that we were thinking on this. And this Saily eSIM worked fantastic. We'll link to Glenn Fleischman's article here because he goes into a lot more great detail. Today, in today's world, if you plan on traveling anywhere outside the United States, more so than just Canada or Mexico, because most of our US-based cellular plans will work both in Canada and Mexico, although you do need to check your plan. But if you're planning to travel anywhere else internationally, definitely look at an eSIM, because I got to tell you, once you get familiar with it, watch a couple of YouTube videos, it is the best way to use and get access to data when you are traveling.
And the service that you used, you were sort of, you said you were mispronouncing it as Sally, but I see on their website, it's the word sail, like you're sailing on a sailboat.
Oh,
it's
Saily.
Saily, S-A-I, and they even have like a little like
right.
waves under it. So I guess it's
I
like
see
you're
it now.
sailing.
Okay, Saily. I still like
there you go.
Sally. Because I think, but I got to tell you, I mean, it was just so much easier than I thought, because I was a little intimidated by this. It's like eSIM. I don't even understand the difference between SIMs, but it was great. Like, we were able to go, and I think we got the entire region, Europe region, because we were traveling to UK and France and Germany. So I didn't want to just sit on one specific country, although you can do that if you wanted to. And it's just so easy that now, in at least the current iPhones, that you can switch between any of those eSIMs. Now, I'm sure a lot of Android people have been doing this for a long time. This will work for Android as well, but for the iPhone users, it was just really, really easy. And most of these other systems are pretty much the same. It's just, I just happen to sit on Sally, but Arlo or Holofly, any of those others. And I think there's like Gigasky or Gig Sky, I think, is another one too, that I don't even see Glenn mentioned here. But there's several of them out there. And I would just say stick with at least this list here with Glenn, because there are some shady ones out there that you just don't want to, go. But if you go with some of these that are trusted, it's a great way to get data and access data while you're over there. And also, it tells you like how much you're using on a daily basis, so that if you're getting to your cap or you're starting to run out, you could just reload it and get some more at the same time.
Good tip. My tip has to do with something that happened this week. So I was driving to work and, listening to a podcast, as I do, and I park my car and I look at my phone real quick, and I happen to see at the top of my phone, I'm like, what is this bizarre dot? In fact, yeah, I sent you a picture of it.
Here,
So
I got a picture.
at the very top of
right
my
here.
screen. So there you go. It's 9:02 in the morning. And I saw this green dot. I'm like, what is that? Why is there a green dot on my phone? I'm like, and I just couldn't remember. So I went and I found what I gave you a link to is, we'll have it in the show notes, is, there's an Apple page called About the Orange and Green Indicators. And of course, now I know what I know it from. Anytime you turn on the camera on your phone, Apple gives you, your iPhone gives you an indication that your camera is on, which is a good sort of security, privacy type thing. And it is a green dot. And as this page describes, there's two color dots that show up at the top of your screen. If the microphone is being used on your iPhone, an orange dot shows up.
Okay.
If the camera is being used, a green dot shows up. And if both are being used, both the camera and the microphone, it also is a green dot. So camera means, the green means camera, and orange means only the microphone. So now I know what the dot is. And now, of course, I remember that every time I go to take a picture, I see the green dot. I still have the question though, on my phone, like I was listening to a podcast. I was using the Overcast app.
That's what
I wasn't doing a video call. I wasn't doing anything else. And normally when you're using your camera, the dot shows up sort of in, if you have the dynamic island on your iPhone, the dot shows right in the dynamic island.
That's
for
what
me,
they show here.
The thing that was in my dynamic island was my location services, and that makes I'm sure something I was using location services of seeing me get to work. To this day, it's been like a couple of days now, Brett. I don't know, when I was driving to work, Like, I certainly was not using the camera in my car. Of course, that would be illegal, so I would never do that, officer. But I don't even have the reason to do it. Well, I'm not taking pictures while I'm driving, and I'm not doing video calls while I'm
Right.
driving. I I don't, I mean, and I wasn't doing it that morning as I was getting ready. Why was that green
Huh.
indicator there? It's really bizarre. I even did a test that I started up my iPhone and I go into my camera mode here. I'm doing it right now while we're talking. So I've turned on my camera and my green dot is
Right.
there. And now I'm going to close the camera app. One Mississippi, two. It was like literally one Mississippi later, the green dot was there for a second and then it went away. So why was it still persistent? Maybe it was a bug. Maybe I was being surveilled. Were you watching me, Brett? What were you doing?
Well,
Tell me now. Why were you
the
watching me?
but that green dot that you just saw right now, that was inside the dynamic island, right? And
Well, it
here on
was,
this,
but when you
yeah,
close, if you open up your camera app, you'll see an island.
yes,
And if you
yeah,
close your
I
camera
see it.
app for about a half second, you'll see that green dot move off to the side, just like in the picture you're showing right here, and then it
Oh,
disappears
yeah.
completely. So
Okay.
maybe it was just stuck there. This is what I was thinking is, I had been taking some pictures like the night before. Maybe it got stuck in that mode. I don't know what it is. So either it was a fluke or Big Brother was watching me. I don't know, but at least I know that something was happening. So that's what the green indicator is. So if something bizarre happens to me, if you also are being surveilled, or if someone's listening to
That's how
you,
you know.
it's good to know that the orange dot or the green dot will give you at least a clue that it's going on. Now, further than that, you need to investigate yourself. So
Wait, so you don't have a resolution to
I
this? You
don't, I
don't know
know.
why the green
If
dot was
any
there?
listeners
Oh my
know, let
goodness.
me know. I wish I could find out. And of course, now I've long since, closed up all the apps and everything else. So I don't know how to go back and recreate it. But it was curious.
This is a helpful little support article though. That orange dot and the green dot, because people will I've gotten that question several times, Jeff. It's like, what is that dot for? What does that mean? And I do remember the orange is the microphone is turned on, or the green is like the camera is turned on. And sure enough, if they go into Snapchat or something like that, right? Then that will show like that's what it's. Or if you're in a Zoom call, I know I see that come up quite a bit on my phone. I'll see that come up, but wow. Now I want to know. I thought you had the
I
answer
wish.
to this, Jeff. Okay, well, somebody will know, hopefully, and they will write in and help you figure out the mystery there. Solve the mystery for us, please, folks. Appreciate it. I want to say thanks again to Lit Software for being a sponsor this week. Go ahead and send them a quick email at hello@litsoftware.com. Let them know that you heard about it in the News podcast. You could get a free license. Now, that's if you enterprise, right? You can't just get a free license right off the bat. I don't want to put anything in there. But if you inquire about the enterprise and you go through with some of that, go ahead and ask them. And we thank Lit Software for being a sponsor today. And thank you, Jeff, as always, for being here. And I look forward to talking with you next week.
Thanks, Brett. Bye bye, everybody.